our live show here on YouTube for college football. Back with my boys John and Jose. We figured out the camera situation. So last week, those who were in here and couldn't figure out the camera, we figured out what was going on with that. So we got that up and rolling as well. So we're back. Going to talk some more college football. It's another week. A lot of stuff going on in college football right now. The playoffs are kind of shaping up, but there's still a few more, a few conferences that are kind of wide open. So we're going to go through recap of last weekend, and then we will also be going through some of the games for this weekend. Not as many big games going on this weekend as there has been the past few weeks, but still college football still some games that matter. So we're kind of in the meat of it right now. So we're going to hop right into it. We also have the Dodgers game going on right now. And as you can see, my boy Jose and rocking his Dodgers hat, that's his team. So if something happens in that game and he starts going buck wild one way or the other, that's what's going on.
Or throwing shit.
Or throwing stuff all over the place. Good or bad, that's what's going on. He's watching the Dodgers game. But he's in here with us tonight. So
don't ever question my commitment, guys. I'm multitasking this thing. Shohei just grounded out, but yeah, if you see me going crazy, something good or bad happened.
About to blow a 3-0 lead.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But all right, let's hop into it from last weekend. Boise goes to UNLV, gets a big dub. Now, JT wasn't the biggest X factor as he has been in previous weeks as far not video game numbers. He didn't go for no 260 and 6 touchdowns, something ridiculous, but still effective. Still got the dub, and that kind of, in my personal opinion, kind of seals their fate as far as what goes forward with them. They've got to be the front runner now to get into the playoff as a G5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question. Yeah, they're in.
Yeah.
They're in unless they
just they're in.
Yeah, unless they get upset by somebody.
Yeah.
They're in for sure. I think UNLV really tried to key in on Genty that game, and it worked. It worked for a lot of the game. He still got 128 and a 30.
Yeah.
But regardless, big game. They won, knocks UNLV out. Boise's almost solidified their spot. So good for them.
I have a rematch too. That was.
Yeah.
That was a fun game to watch. My biggest takeaway from that one was really just Maddox Matson playing so well. It was it wasn't like your typical Ashton Genty game where he went out there and dominated. They really relied on Maddox Matson and really the whole team coming together and to knock up UNLV. So I was impressed with that, just the fact that they can rely on him and he can produce in those big moments. Because UNLV's game plan was, we are not going to let Genty beat us. We're going to go in there, we're going to stuff the box, and he will not break one. And like you said, Tyler still put up 130, 140 total yards and a couple touchdowns there. So that just goes to show how he is goes to show how good he is. But yeah, the market for what it's worth is not impressed with that game because Ashton Genty's Heisman odds have dropped. I want to say he's like 4th now on the list, on the board, or 3rd or 4th.
Really?
Behind Dylan Gabriel, I want to say is now the favorite, and I think
Gabriel's the favorite now. Last time I checked it this week.
As of right now, Travis Hunter he's at plus 220. At least on BetOnline. It may be different other books, but
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, Travis is ahead of Dylan for the Heisman, and then Cam and Ashton are the same odds.
Yeah, the market wasn't impressed. I don't really understand why, but yeah, they just didn't like that game.
I was about to say, how realistic is it for a guy? I mean, he's not going to go off for 260, 4 touchdowns every week. You know what I mean?
I think that the running back value is so low now. You know what I mean? It's like look at the NFL now. They just the values on running backs are just bottom of the barrel. You know what I mean? Running back by committee, all these NFL teams. A lot of these teams are probably like, as good as Genty is, a lot of these teams probably looking at him like, man, he's getting a lot of wear and tear. But
well, he got hurt in this game, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was banged up, but he kept getting up though. I'll give him that.
I was talking to somebody at work, and they were like, and we were going back and forth about Genty winning the Heisman. And they were like, well, "What does he got to do? Break the Heisman record? Come on! I mean, break the Barry Sanders record? Come on!" And I was like, "Yeah, he does. Like that's exactly what he needs to do. He breaks that record, he probably wins it. If he doesn't break it, probably won't get it." So, yeah, it is what it is. I guess they weren't impressed with that. But as far as Boise State as a whole, they went out there in this, and they may not be the 12 seed. They
That's
may
what I
be
was
higher
about
than
to
Yeah.
say. They might not even be the 12th seed. Yeah.
Andrew, I don't have a camera. That's why my
He
camera
still
is not
hasn't
on.
bought a camera.
I still
Andrew.
have not bought a camera. I've got to get that on the agenda and get that done. But yeah, I do not have a camera, so that's why mine is not showing up. But that's not a bad thing either.
Was that Andrew who said that?
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes,
Congrats
congrats
Andrew.
to our
Baby
boy Andrew in the chat.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Beautiful baby boy wearing his Jerry Jones onesie. I love Jerry Jones. I'm happy for you, Andrew.
We got some Chargers stuff too for Sundays after the Cowboys game is over. We can put that on.
Wait, is Andrew a Cowboys fan?
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep. He got all kinds. They've got Cowboy stuff. They've got Packers stuff. They've got Iowa State, Arkansas, Rangers, Chargers. Kid's gonna be really confused because he's got about 6 different teams that he's got close for. But
I'll send you a Dodgers hat if we win the World Series today.
yeah, so he's gonna be really confused. But Oregon cash for stuff absolutely routed Illinois.
Yeah.
So that one cashed. Then they were seemingly in control the entire time. You kind of think that they're going to be pretty good until the Big Ten championship. So they're going to be perfectly fine there. Nebraska plays it really close with Ohio State. A barn burner of a game. Dylan Raiola stinks, but they keep it close. Is there any concern or anything that people should be worried about with Ohio State going forward, or is it just kind of a one-off deal? Nebraska played a great game, whatever.
I would be very concerned if I was Ohio State. I was a Buckeye fan. Their offensive line is a mess. They're starting left tackle Josh Simmons. He's out for the season. They're starting right tackle. I forget his name. He's out for the season. The offensive line already wasn't that good. We just saw them go up against Nebraska team that has a really good defensive line, and they ate them up. So if I'm a Buckeye fan, the depth on the offensive line in general, like every team in the country doesn't have that's the one position where once you start getting down, the roster, your level of play is going to drop significantly. And for Ohio State, it wasn't a strong position in the first place. Now you're, going down to your third and fourth tackles. That's a problem for me. And we'll talk about their matchup this week against Penn State, but on paper they don't match up well. They're going to have to get something done this week in practice because it's not looking good for them. I'm very, very concerned going forward for Ohio State.
It showed in the running game too. They only ran for 64 yards.
Yep.
I mean, Judkins had 20. Judkins had 29 on 10 carries. Travion Henderson had 25 on 10 carries. Will Howard had 14 yards on 8 carries. So
when you get two backs like that, that's really bad.
Yeah, it's definitely showing. Nebraska's got like Jose said, Nebraska's got a really good defense, and it's not going to get any easier. You're going to have to play Oregon again. Now banged up on the offensive line. You're going to have to play if they make it to the Big Ten championship game. They beat Penn State.
Yeah.
Now you got to play Penn State, who might have a better defense than Nebraska. So some real concern for Ohio State fans.
I just want to point out, guys. I mean, I'm not saying it's a big chance, but there is a chance Oregon doesn't make the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
If Penn State beats Ohio State and Indiana wins out, it could very well be Indiana Penn State. So, in which it wouldn't matter. Like, and this is what we talked about at the beginning of the season, right? Like, if you're Oregon and you finish 12-0, you wouldn't want to make the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you rather just go into the playoff healthy? Like, what does that do for you? You're already
you're in either way.
Anyways.
Yeah.
You I think all three of those teams, if they were 11-0 or 12-0, would say, nah, we'll skip it. Don't put us in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
the team who doesn't get the playoff, the Big Ten championship berth, I think is going to be in the best shape. Honestly, best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going to be the ones, be like.
That's just another game beaten down.
Yeah.
Especially on the offensive and the defensive line. Mm-hmm. So, but I will say Oregon, ever since the Ohio State game, they've looked like the best team in the country to me, and their odds keep shortening.
Through. By far.
Their odds keep shortening. I think the last time I looked, they were like plus 400, plus 350 after being at plus 800. So they've definitely put it together on the offensive line. Defensively as a whole, seems like they were holding back there for a while till that Ohio State game, and now they've just let it open.
Yeah, and seemingly there's not anybody can do to stop it either.
Yeah.
Speaking of signs for concern, Vandy 3-point loss to Texas, 27-24. Losing to Georgia a couple weeks ago, and then 3-point game with Vandy, which I know Vandy is not the Vandy of old, but I mean, there's no reason that Texas should be in a game with Vanderbilt. Is there any concern for Texas?
I think there's concern for sure. They hadn't played nobody before this. They get exposed by Georgia after Georgia gave up 3 turnovers. Georgia still dominated that game, and now they play Vanderbilt, who does have somewhat of an offense, and they only win by 3. I think there is real concern for Texas.
Max Muncy just struck out first, second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with John. I'm very concerned with Texas. Like we broke down in that Georgia game, they played nobody, and that Georgia game was, how do I say it? The box score was a lot closer than what the actual game was. That as well. You know what I mean? Like Georgia handed their ass to them. So Vanderbilt, for what it's worth, like the style of football they play, they're always going to play well as an underdog. Especially getting so many points, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think it was at home too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're essentially a service academy, guys. They run the ball 80% of the time. They shorten the games, limit possession. So, in general, you really shouldn't see Vanderbilt get blown out all that much. So, a 3-point loss isn't, I guess, the craziest thing. But even still, we expect more out of Texas. The talent they have. So, going forward, it's gonna be really interesting to handicap this team. I feel like when we think of like Georgia and Oregon, teams like that, right? We don't really care about matchups because we're just admitting that these are the best teams in the country. They should be able to beat anybody, right? Texas, in my opinion, is matchup dependent. They have to play a certain team that matches up well with their skill set in order for them to be successful.
I agree.
Because of that, I can't put Texas in that same tier as an Oregon or a Georgia, teams like that. If you get what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm concerned with Texas, guys. I don't think they're at that level yet. Can they get there? Sure. But as of right now, they have some work to do.
But which team come off the bye? Did Vanderbilt come off the bye, or did Texas come off the bye? It was Vanderbilt, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was Vanderbilt.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So yeah. A&M gets it done at home. Look, if I see Connor Weigman in the game again, I'm gonna stroke out. Keep him on the sideline. Marcel Reed is your guy. We've been saying this since the week after the Arkansas game, since like the Missouri or like what it was like after like the week after the Arkansas game. Just keep him in. They're down 17-7. Marcel Reed comes in, ends up being a 38-23 ball game. He runs all over him. He threw some good passes. He protected the ball, and got a big dub at home. And that game against Texas last week of the season is ramping up to be a giant game, and I'm hyped for it. Looking at A&M, which I know, Jose, we'll get into their game this weekend a little bit because I know that you're going to be on South Carolina, but they're still undefeated in SEC play. So even if they do drop a game this weekend, which I think if they were to drop one outside the Texas game, it would be this weekend at South Carolina. They should still be, kind of a front runner to get in the SEC or the playoff, for SEC, other than outside like Georgia.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're an SEC team, you have 2 losses, you're probably going to get in. So they should be fine. I think it's a bad spot for them. Again, we'll get into it later. But yeah, I wouldn't overreact if I'm an A&M fan. If you guys lose this week, I think you guys still control your own destiny.
Yeah. I would agree with that. That game was crazy too, by the way. That LSU A&M game.
Yeah, that game was fire.
But yeah, Marcel Reed only completed 2 passes.
Yeah,
that boy
was like a 50-yard bomb.
Well, that boy just ran all over him. I mean, he took over with his legs.
Did you guys watch that game?
I watched the second half of that game.
Did you guys see when Weigman got benched and like Elko told him like, "Oh, you're out," and you could see like the frustration, the disappointment in Weigman's face. They cut to it like throughout the broadcast and showed the snippet of him getting benched.
Yeah.
Like if you're a team like A&M, right, and you have like national championship aspirations, which they do, they have the talent, right? They have the personnel. You can't have this kind of controversy lingering, right? Like Elko needs to come out and say, Marcel Reed is our starter going forward, and that's the way it's going to be. I don't think he's done that yet. I think we all assume it's going to be Marcel Reed, But just that look of dejection and frustration out of Weigman is telling, because if he starts causing any trouble, I'm not saying he is, but if he were to cause any commotion in the locker room, stuff like that breaks up teams. I can guarantee you, the receivers, for what it's worth, are going to be pulling for Weigman, because I know you want to win the game, and I know Marcel Reed gives you the best option to win the game, but the receivers are not going to be happy with Marcel Reed in the game. He really can't throw all that well. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, I think this is one of those rare cases where having two quarterbacks might work in their favor as long as they can get Weigman to buy in, because there's certain games where I feel like Weigman's the better option, and there's certain games where Marcel Reed's the better option. But I think if you're Elko, you need to come out and just name Reed the starter and just hope that Weigman is professional about this, understands his role, and doesn't try to create like a mutiny in the locker room, because stuff like that could really disrupt the team, and it can happen really fast. So
yeah, I hate two quarterback systems. I know it could work, but God, I hate two quarterback systems.
No, I hate them too.
It just gives it for me. It takes away confidence. I can only assume Weigman's confidence is so low now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what would happen if you threw him in a game?
Yeah, but like also outside of the Missouri game, he hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he had a good game against Missouri, but Missouri's shit. Like, they're not good. So, like,
I think personally, I think in the short run, Reed gives them the better chance to win. But if you want to win a national championship, Weigman has to be the guy. And I'm not saying just put him in there and hope for the best. Like, he needs to play at the level we think he can play at. Maybe we overrate him. Maybe he's just not that good. But in this day and age, to win the CFP, you have to be able to throw the ball. Like, you just have to. And Marcel Reed just doesn't have that in his arsenal, at least not yet. I think a lot of times when we look at two quarterback systems, we have guys who, I'm trying to think of like the most obvious ones.
He's a better Alex Orji. He's what Michigan was hoping Alex Orji would be.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, like just their skill sets are so on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Like Reed can't throw, but he could run. Weigman can't run, but he could throw. If they play these cards right, I mean, it could work. I'm just saying, like, I honestly feel if they want to win this championship, Weigman has to be part of this offense. Personally, I don't know. Just like their ceiling is limited if it's Reed, because it's working in a pinch, but eventually teams will catch on to what they want to do, and they notice that he can't throw the ball. Over the next few games, defensive coordinators, especially in the playoff when they have a month or so to prepare, they'll be able to key in on Marcel Reed. You got to be able to throw the ball. Weigman's their best option at that. But I'm not the head coach. We'll see how they work this thing out.
Yeah, BYU, man, undefeated, continues to roll. Beats UCF 37-24 in Orlando. I mean,
I can't wait to see BYU Colorado, man.
Yeah, going forward, this is they're going forward. This is their schedule. They don't. If they play, it'll be in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It would be in the Big 12 championship. I'm assuming Kansas State is going to have to lose a couple games.
Yeah, going forward, BYU, they play at Utah this weekend, which, if you would have talked about going into the season or whatever, like, yeah, that's a loss. Now, not so sure. Utah's last in the Big 12. So that game is not as daunting as, it should be. And those games are always crazy anyway. So
I think that's next week, Tyler.
The 9th, yeah. And then Kansas plays at BYU. Then BYU has to go to Arizona State, and then they get Houston at home. That's the last 4 games.
I think Kansas might be BYU. Kansas has been playing better ball.
They have. Say right now, I think Kansas beats them.
Yeah, Kansas does have a chance, but I don't know. I'd be lying too if I said I've watched a whole lot of Kansas games, but I mean they're in every game they play. I mean, it seems like. Yeah. And then I don't know if they just find a way to lose or what. But
what's Colorado's remaining schedule?
If I remember correctly, they didn't have.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, I don't feel like they play
Texas
Tech on the 9th,
Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State.
So harder than BYU's for sure.
Yeah. What's Iowa State?
But they're playing.
Dude, the Big 12's wide open.
Wide open. Still at this point in time is just absolutely insane. Like,
yeah.
Iowa State plays. They got Texas Tech at home.
Kansas.
Then they close the year out with Cincinnati, Utah, and Kansas State. So BYU's got the best slate so far out of the top teams in the Big 12 right now. They've got the best slate going forward. If they can handle business with Utah and Kansas, I think they'll be able to handle business with Arizona
Kansas
State.
State's got a pretty easy one. They got Houston, Arizona State, Cincinnati, and then Iowa State to end the year.
Yeah.
That Kansas State Iowa State game is probably going to be a game that determines who gets in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Big 12 still absolutely wide open. Gonna have
Colorado looked good. I watched.
They did
that
look
whole
good.
Game. Yeah, they're really putting it together now, offensively and defensively.
It was a good run for Navy. Good run for Navy. They got cracked, absolutely cracked.
The ship has sunk, man.
It has sunk. It was a good run for Navy. It was some good times. We appreciate it. Army Navy game will still be lit, so we still got that.
Yeah,
going
we don't have to worry about that at the end of the year now.
Yeah. But yeah,
but that's that is a good win for Notre Dame because there's a really good chance Navy wins out. So they have that on their resume. Notre Dame has that on their resume now to kind of counteract that Northern Illinois loss. And then if they end up beating the Army too, those are two really big wins with USC left. So this really, really helps Notre Dame's playoff chances, in my opinion. They dominated. They defensively, they played good on offense, which they have been the last few weeks. They seem like they're really putting it together. So the way that Notre Dame beat Navy, in my opinion, and the way that they could end up beating Army is what is going to get them into that maybe like 6-7 seed in the playoffs.
Dude, I get it? They're independent, but how do they keep getting these schedules? Notre Dame. I mean, look at the teams they've played this year. Texas A&M to start the year off. Okay, fine. Northern Illinois, Purdue, Miami, Ohio, Louisville, fine. Stanford, Georgia Tech, which I'm pretty sure did not have Haynes King, or did he play in that game?
He didn't.
Navy, Florida State, which fine, but they suck, so that means nothing. Virginia, Army, and USC. I mean, that's insane. Like, join the conference already.
I'll keep it a buck with you. As long as USC's still playing hard, they haven't quit, they'll probably beat Notre Dame at the end of the season.
That's what I'm thinking. As at USC too.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be there, guys. But no, look, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you rebounded nicely. I think we all thought they were done once they lost to NIU, right? Week 2 or 3 of the season.
Yeah,
I did. I wrote them off. So this team can't make the CFP. Part of that was because I just figured at some point they'd slip up again, and so far they've been perfect. Riley Leonard has played a lot better as the season's gone on. The ground game has been the real difference maker for them, and it's always been that way for Notre Dame. But this year we had questions because the offensive line, they've really come together, played well. I'm still not sold on the receivers, still not sold on the offensive skill position players, which is why I think USC beats them, because I think once they play a team that actually has better athletes than them, better talent, that's going to give them trouble. All those teams you just named off, Todd, that they played against, none of them have more talent than Notre Dame. You know what I mean? So I don't think this team is a legitimate CFP threat, because once they get into a game with a team that's well coached, a coach at the same skill level, and a team that either has the same amount of talent or more, that's going to give them problems, right? Navy, with all due respect to Navy, and I respect the troops and everything, I love America. The players at Navy can't hold Notre Dame's jockstraps when it comes to talent, right? They play better as a team. They play well as a team, but in terms of individual talent, they're not that good. At the end of the day, you win games based on talent. Coaching is a massive part of it, but if you have more talent than the other team, that's just going to go a lot more, a long way. Like in Colorado, that's a team just purely talent, and they're putting it together this year. So I think once Notre Dame plays a team that's similar, has a similar talent level than them, they should struggle. I'm not sold on that team yet. I know, Brian, if you're watching this, I'm sure I'm upsetting you. But in the long run, I'm still a little bit wary of Notre Dame's outlook in regards to the CFP. So
I've been super impressed with the defensive side of the ball, especially after losing Morrison. The defensive side of the ball has really played well for I think they had 3 takeaways or something, maybe 4.
Yeah.
That game. They played really well. That's definitely their strong suit of that team is the defense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana continues to roll, gets a dub at home.
Yeah,
Taven
without
Jackson,
Curtis.
yeah, without Curtis Rourke, Tavis Jackson in there, and they cover. So still going undefeated as of right now. This is the remaining schedule for Indiana. They play at Michigan State this weekend, and then the next weekend they play Michigan. Then they get a bye, and then they play at Ohio State, and then they get Purdue at home. Is Curtis Rourke playing this weekend or no? Is he back healthy?
50-50 from what I heard, but it seems
Yeah.
like he's gonna play. Maybe 51-49.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that I read some posts or whatever that was saying, they're hopeful, but they don't know yet.
I
100%.
wouldn't be surprised if he sat until the bye week, to be
Yeah.
honest.
They
I mean,
could lose this week. Like it's
to
not
get
out of the
to
realm.
no, it's not. Michigan State's been playing a lot better. What is his name? The coach that came from Oregon State.
Jonathan Smith.
Yeah, Jonathan's. Yeah, he's doing a really good job with that team. I think he's going to have them back on the map in a couple years. But they're playing some really good ball. So they definitely could pull it out this week. I don't think they will. I don't think Michigan really stands a chance either going to Indiana. Then they get the bye week to get ready for Ohio State at Ohio State. That's going to be the key game. I could really see Curtis maybe sitting until that game. But I don't think even a one-loss Indiana team is still going to get in the playoffs. So at this point, I just think Indiana needs to be on. I mean, not let off the gas, but me more so on damage control than anything. Just don't mess up. Just you know what I mean. Keep your guys healthy and don't mess up. If you lose to Ohio State, that's okay. You're still going to get in.
We talked in the postseason about how different coaches we were high on, and the top two that we agreed on were Kurt Signetti, Mike Elko.
Mm-hmm.
Combined they're 15-1 this season.
Yep.
In this day and age, it doesn't take a long time to rebuild programs, right? Like if you have a coach, it's taken him a couple of seasons to get things going. He's probably not going to get it going. As long as you hire the right guy, they should be able to turn that program around pretty quickly. Another coach you were high on, Syracuse, Fran Brown. I'd say he's done a pretty good job this season, right?
Yeah.
Just
especially with how NIL is now and the transfer portal.
Yeah,
I mean, you can have a program turned around in the next year.
I mean, yeah, it's free agency basically with no restrictions. Like there's no contracts. It's just get who you want.
Look at Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, right? Last year they were awful. That was year 0 for year 1, I guess. Second year, they're doing really good. So if you're a head coach or you're if you're a fan of a certain team and they hired a new coach and he's saying that it's going to take a couple years, that's bullshit. It could be done in 1 year, 2 years tops in this day and age. So just going forward, right? We know what to expect out of these new coaches. For Indiana, though, this team kind of reminds me of that Tennessee team from a few years ago when they had, I think it was Hendon Hooker. So a lot of hype, a lot of scoring. I think that Tennessee team was a covering team, a cash cow for a lot of bettors. And then they came up against Alabama. I want to say it was like week 6 or 7 of the season. They played a crazy game. That was a game everybody thought, okay, this is where Tennessee falls back to earth. And they beat Alabama. I forget I think it was like 49-42. I kind of feel like that's what's shaping up in this Indiana season when they play against Ohio State. Like everybody assumes at this point, like, oh, Indiana's gonna be undefeated and they'll play Ohio State and lose, and then we'll see where they go from there. I don't know, guys. Based on what I've seen out of Indiana this season, like they look legit. Like they're a well-coached team, like we said, and they have a legitimate chance going into Columbus and beating them. I never thought I would say this, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me if Indiana, knocked off Ohio State. And if they do that, they're locked to this. They're gonna get in no matter what. They'll be in the CFP. So I know everyone's kind of waiting for Indiana to fall over, and I guess to a certain extent I am too. But with each passing week, I'm becoming more and more of a believer. And honestly, I just think that at this point, this late in the season, right? We're not week 3 or 4 anymore, guys. We're week 8. Like, if a team is good at this point, they're probably just a really good team. At this point, I think it's fair to say Indiana is no longer like frauds or overrated. They are what they are, and that's a good team. And we need to stop expecting them to lose and respecting them for what they actually are and what they're doing on the field, and adjust, and betting accordingly. So it wouldn't shock me if they beat Ohio State. And at this point, I don't know what the exact odds are, but I would assume it's like plus 150 to make the CFP or so, plus maybe plus 175, 200. I think it's a fine bet if you want to take Indiana to make the CFP, I think that's a pretty good value because I don't think they fall anywhere. And even if they fall against Ohio State, I still think 11-1 probably gets them in.
They're at plus 140 right now on BetOnline to make the playoff.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that.
And the thing with Indiana too is they are reliant on one thing. They all kind of lean against each other. Like the offensive side of the ball, they can run the ball, they can pass the ball. They're very efficient. The defensive side of the ball is super strong. They don't make mistakes, penalties, or anything like that. It's just they're a very complete team in my opinion. Question for you, Jose, I have real quick is: say Ohio State loses to Indiana and then they lose to Penn State this week. Then what? Are they out?
Ohio State?
Yeah.
Oh, they're out.
Yeah. With 3 losses, they're out.
I think if Ohio State loses any one of those games, they might be out, guys. Like
With 2 losses, you think they'd be out?
I mean, who have they beat? You know, like if they lose against Oregon and Penn State, those are the only 2 games on their schedule that were any good.
Yeah.
You know, they may get in because they're Ohio State, but I don't think they're gonna. I don't think the committee is gonna sit there and say, you know, oh, we're gonna give Ohio State preferential over a 2-loss SEC team, like a Tennessee team, or like an LSU team, or an Alabama.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Their schedule doesn't stack up well, so yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think it would be the fashion and how they lose those games more than anything.
They didn't get blown out against
Oregon.
Like that was a competitive game, a game they probably could have won. If that game was in Columbus, they probably win it. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think even with 2 losses, with it being Ohio State, I still think they get in. Do I think they should be? No. Do I think they will? Yes. Just because it's
like
Ohio State.
A 2-loss Alabama, for example, would have wins over LSU, Georgia. You know, a 2-loss Tennessee would have that win over Alabama.
Yeah.
Even like a 2-loss Ole Miss. If Ole Miss ran the table, they would have knocked off Georgia. Like, there's so many other teams out there that I just feel have better resumes than Ohio State. To where if Ohio State doesn't win this game against Penn State or the Indiana game, you really got to question exactly, you know.
I agree.
Stack up, you know, like so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. If they lose to Penn State, like how are they going to view it? Yeah, they're a 2-loss team, but they lost to the number 1 and number 3 team in the country. Like
if they lose to Penn State, that Indiana game is massive.
It's everything. There's no way they get in with 3.
Yeah.
No team's getting in with 3.
Yeah. No, they're not getting in with 3. There's still a way for them to get in with 2, but
yeah,
bases loaded, nobody out right now.
Top of you did top of the 8.
I'm like 50. I'm focused.
Yeah, I've been sitting here watching it too. Let's go on to another game. Speaking of Ole Miss, they squeaked by Oklahoma this weekend, 26-14 dub. Look, I'm not sold on this Ole Miss team at all. I still think that there is a lot of things that they've got to get worked out on the offensive side of the ball. I am not sold on Ole Miss at all. Oklahoma's defense is good, but I mean their offense is terrible. I don't believe Oklahoma's a very good team, and I just don't believe in Ole Miss at all. So there's no way that they beat Georgia, in my personal opinion. I think there's a good chance that they lose to Arkansas this weekend, depending on which Arkansas team shows up. So what's y'all's thoughts on Ole Miss going forward?
The main thing it's just short and sweet for me, is Ole Miss is so do or die. You have to win out. So I don't think they'll beat Georgia, and they're going to be out.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just curious where is Lane Kiffin's head at? Like, we've heard his name come up a lot with the Florida.
In Florida?
Job, which at this point might not even be open. His name's come up with other jobs. He's usually like a hot topic, or his name's a hot commodity in regards to the coaching carousel. So I'm curious to see if he's already quit, if he's already checked out. It seems that way. The team just isn't playing all that well. With all the money dumped into that team, you expected a lot more. Their offense is pretty much just Jackson Dart, and that's it. They have no run game to speak of, which is not good for Ole Miss because, they had Quinshon Judkins last year. I think they brought in some, I think it's Ulysses Bentley, I think his name is, from SMU. Went over there. They had some players that they were high on. And like I said, they lost a star player like Quinshon Judkins. And their run game has really, really suffered this year. So it's Jackson Dart or nothing. And I'm a big fan of his in the receiving corps, but they can only do so much. So, big question for Ole Miss going forward.
Yeah, we'll get into that game a little bit. I'm not going to go super in depth in it, but
Titus.
Um,
That game, boys.
I'm going to be on the Hogs this weekend. I have 7-point
side,
dogs
Hogs?
at home. SMU barely squeaks by Duke 28-27 in overtime. They say
Our Duke Blue Devils.
oh yeah, the Duke 5.5 win total. Speaking of, that one has already cashed. I wish BetOnline would pay it out already. It hadn't paid it out, but that was easy. I mean, absolutely easy money.
That was our best bet. Like,
Yeah.
Amongst the three of us, we had given out Duke over 5.5 as like our very first. I think that was our very first episode we did.
Yeah, that was
totals, right.
Yeah, in
And
like
we said
June.
This line should not be 5.5, and
Yeah.
it cashed like the first 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, halfway through the season, already cashed out. So that's absolutely free money. Hope everybody got in on that because I mean that's easy money there. And the same thing with UCLA. That was our other best bet. And yeah, they're not gonna hit their win total.
Duke's moved on to basketball. They're ready to see what Cooper Flags really got out there. They might lose every game in football the rest of the year.
They might.
Yeah, they might get their ass kicked so bad, Tyler, they just get a negative win on the schedule, and that's right.
That's why they ain't paid out yet.
Yeah. Going forward for SMU, how big of a chance do they have? Going forward, let's see. Look at their schedule. So their only loss so far is to BYU, which is shaping up to be a pretty good loss. They got Pitt at home this weekend. And then they got Boston College at home after a bye, and then they got to go to Virginia, and then they get Cal at home. The remaining schedule still is shaping up pretty good for them too. That's some games that they could absolutely win, and win with these really. Besides maybe this Pitt game. This Pitt game is going to be a pretty good game.
That's a big game, guys.
That's a giant game, and they get it at home too. It's a night game too, so I'll be tuning into that game. And be watching that game tomorrow night. So, what do you think? Does SMU have a chance going forward?
I don't think they're going to get into the ACC playoffs. I think Miami and Clemson schedules are fairly easy here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's going to be tough.
What are the tiebreakers? I don't know what the tiebreakers are.
I don't know what the tiebreaker is. Yeah.
These teams don't play each other, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. They all finish undefeated in ACC.
Yeah.
Which would be
weird. It's going to be really interesting because if it ends up being Miami and Clemson in the ACC title game, I don't know. I don't think SMU would get in even with the one loss to BYU.
Yeah, to a top 10 team, and Pitt's ranked
because every prediction I've seen has had one ACC team get in, maybe two.
Yeah,
and it's clear in my eyes, the eye test. It's clear to me that Miami and Clemson are the best teams in that conference.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah. So if those two teams make the ACC title game with the records they have currently, I think Clemson's got the one loss to Georgia and Miami's undefeated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's who. If say Clemson beats Miami and they all three have one loss, I think you could see Clemson and Miami get in, but.
This was, Jose, I think you said Dodgers took the lead. But I think this is why I think they'll expand the playoff.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's a one-loss team sitting at 20 in the country. And if they win out, it's going to be they're not going to be ranked in the top 12.
It's going to kind of be like the Florida State scenario last year.
Yeah.
Why is it 2 losses SEC team getting in, and we got 1 loss against BYU who made the Big 12 title
10.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't get in.
I would rather the 2 lost SEC team get in.
Yeah.
100%. Exactly.
But I agree with you.
It's going to end up being the same scenario as last year with Florida State.
Yeah.
They're going to be they're going to be crying wolf.
It's going to happen every year, regardless of how many teams they have in. Someone get it. You know what I mean? So that's why I think it's fine where it's at. But yeah, I would advocate for a 2-loss SEC team to get in over SMU.
Yeah. I have a note on here for Texas Tech blowing a 17-point lead, losing to TCU. It has absolutely nothing to do with any conference or anything other than the money line bet that we put out last week. TCU scores 14 in the fourth quarter, wins by 1 point. Chat my ass a little bit with that one. And Colorado's also in the conversation. They continue to win, 34-23 win over Cincy.
Colorado's a team that ESPN and the committee will want in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
So
I want them in the playoffs.
Everyone is pulling for Colorado to make the Big 12 title game and win it.
Yeah, they're gonna have to win out, and I think they're gonna have to have a little help. But they're in it. They're in. The thing with the Big 12 is it's so open. They're in it as much as anybody is.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Like nobody is really.
I think you got four main players here. It's Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State, and Colorado, in my opinion.
So it's pretty far. All right, let's get into let's get into good stuff. Some games coming up for this weekend.
Yep.
Ole Miss goes to Arkansas. This line opened up as 9.5 and is now at 7 even. The over/under is sitting at 54, and the money line for Arkansas is sitting at plus 215. I think Arkansas is live. I know it was Mississippi State last weekend, and I know Mississippi State is not very good, but they have played some teams. Mississippi State has played some teams pretty close the past few weeks. And Arkansas, I'll give them props. They handled their business. Went into Mississippi State, got a dub in a game that Arkansas would normally lose, and scored 54 points. Taylor protected the ball at like 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that was good to see. I'm not sold on Ole Miss at all. I'm definitely not sold on them going on the road to Arkansas and them being a touchdown favorite. So I am going to play the 7 with Arkansas at home. In a worst case scenario, it pushes. I don't see it being I just don't see them winning by more than a touchdown in that game at all. So I am going to take the 7 points. And the fact that we get it at home is going to be good as well. Are y'all playing anything for this game?
I defer to you on this one, the Homicide Hogs. Yeah, something's off with that Ole Miss team like we talked about. I'm not even sure if Lane Kiffin really cares as much as the season goes on. So, yeah, if you like Arkansas here, Tyler, I'll ride with you.
Yeah, I like Arkansas a lot. I think our defense had a big wake-up game after the LSU game. I think I'm a big fan of our D coordinator. He's going to be the one that I'm going to advocate for keeping out of everybody, and the one that may be the hardest to keep. And if anything was to happen to Pittman and he was to leave, that's who I hope we would hire within. I hope it's not Bobby, and I hope it's him that we put at head coach. So I do like him. I do like our defense. I think we're playing pretty well. The LSU game we played like shit. I get it, but he made some adjustments last week. Now I know it's not Ole Miss or LSU, but he at least showed can make some adjustments and play some ball. So I am going to be riding with Arkansas on that one. Minnesota goes to Illinois. The line that I saw it showed it opened at was at 2.5. Was that Illinois plus 2.5? So I'm assuming that was an earlier in the year number. I don't know what it opened up as of this week. But Minnesota's laying 3 on the road. The over/under is sitting at 45, and the money line for Illinois is sitting at plus 125. John, I believe you said something about playing Minnesota. So if so, what do you think out of this game?
Yeah, I really like Minnesota here. I'll be on Minnesota -3. Brosmer's really starting to come around, play good ball. The defense has shown they are one of the best defenses in the country, and they're really putting it together on both sides of the ball now. I think that, the Brosmer I thought I was going to see at the beginning of the year, the kid they got from FCS is really starting to show now. They can control games. I do think this will be a low-scoring game, but I think Illinois is going to really struggle to score points here, move the ball. Altmaier, he's not going to be able to use his legs much. So they're going to have to rely on him throwing the ball. And they have some really good corners. So I really like Minnesota and Brosmer to get this done. I have it like 21-10, 21-14 Minnesota.
I really like Minnesota's DBs, especially at safety.
Yeah,
they got some
they've
dogs.
been playing
really
good DBs. Yeah,
they really do. Jose, you playing anything in this game?
I am. I'll be taking Minnesota as well. I think this is probably the trappiest line of the week, right, guys? Like, you see Illinois as a home dog getting 2.5 against Minnesota to the naked eye, right? You would assume that that's like free money for Illinois. That's a really weird line, but yeah, I agree with John. I think this line should be closer to like 3.5, 4. Max Brosmer has been playing the way that we anticipated he would after a few weeks of the season. And sure enough, here we are, week 7, 8 of the season.
Yeah,
He's looked a lot better.
he threw the pill
They
around
look-
last weekend.
Yeah, and they looked a lot better against pretty good teams. Like they beat USC, they beat UCLA, who's ass, but whatever. They beat Maryland. I mean, it's not horrible teams. You're going out there and showing up against pretty decent teams. On top of that, they probably could have beat Michigan if not for a blown out onside kick
Yeah,
by the Revs. So this Minnesota team's trending up. They proved me wrong. I was kind of hesitant on them coming into the season. They look good, and we talked about this all offseason, right? This is the way it's always been with Minnesota. They always make teams play to their style of football, right? Regardless of the situation, regardless of their opponent, it always seems like teams play to the way Minnesota wants them to play. For Illinois, like they were a fraud team being 6-1. We talked about it last week how we thought Oregon would beat the shit out of them, and they did. Luke Altmaier has 2 good receivers to throw to, and the offense is fine. It's capable. But when you have the DBs that Minnesota possesses, that should cancel it out. So what else are they going to do? I like Minnesota quite a bit, guys. I really, really agree with you guys on this one.
Mm-hmm. And Minnesota gets Illinois after that Oregon beating.
Exactly.
What does Illinois have left to play for at this point? Right, they're not going to make the Big Ten title game. They're not going to make the college football playoff. They're playing for they're going to go to the Goodyear Bowl or the Little Caesars Bowl at this point. So.
Oh, wait, Andrew says, don't throw on my man Wally. That's right. Wally be out there laying the boom.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Minnesota's DBs. I really am. They are playing.
Minnesota's got a heck of a defense. And I'm glad Brosmer is finally playing up to what I kind of hyped him up to be at the beginning of the year. Like I said, I was pretty high on the kid. And he seemed a little shaky at the start, but he's really starting to put it together.
Yeah, and Jose, you were talking about how that line stinks a lot of money. People would think it's a lock for Illinois. 80% of the bets right now are on Illinois for this game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this one just screams out to me. Like
a lot of people know about the home dog trend or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of people are gonna play Illinois here, but
yeah,
this is not a game to play Illinois after coming off losing to Oregon.
Yeah,
I know different league, but last week in the NFL on Thursday night there was a Vikings at the Rams. I think the line was like plus 2.5 as well.
Yeah,
for the Rams. Again, real trappy, right? And sure enough, the Rams come out and win that game.
They did. I appreciate you calling out the Rams on that one because I told you and cashed that one out. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Oregon goes to Michigan. No clue what the line opened up at now, but as of yesterday when I made my notes, it's at 14.5. The over-under for this game is 45.5. And the money line for Michigan is sitting at plus 525. We don't have to go super far in depth on this game. Is there any chance of an upset for Oregon here in this game?
No chance. I don't think so. Michigan can't make their mind up on what quarterback to throw out there. I think one of the quarterbacks just retired from football.
Is it going to be Tuttle? Who plays? Which one of their carousel they're playing this weekend?
Retired.
Huh?
Yeah, Tuttle retired.
Tuttle's
not playing football no more. So.
He's seen enough. He's like, I can't do this shit no more. Dude. I'm done with this.
So I don't know who's going out there. I don't know if it's Warren or Orgy, and I don't really care. They're not going to score on Oregon's defense.
The sad part is Tuttle got a concussion. He wasn't even playing. He just was so fucking fed up, got a headache from watching this team play. He was like, I'm done.
I got a concussion in film.
in
the film room and the meeting room going over the game for the weekend.
Yeah.
He walked out and never came back. It's gonna be Davis Warren. I'm gonna back Michigan here, not on the money line, but getting 15.5 points at home, it's good enough. Now this is all dependent on whether or not Will Johnson plays. If he does play, that's obviously massive. He's one of the best corners in the country. He's probably gonna be a top 10 pick in the draft. By all indications, he's supposed to play, but in this day and age, Michigan really doesn't have much to play for. He may just sit this one out. Look, Oregon has knocked off some quality teams. Boise State, right? Great team. Ohio State, great team. Illinois, yeah, they suck, but they were still 6-1. They're ranked in the top 25. All three of those games have something in common. They all
came home.
Now you got to go to the big house, right? In a stadium with 100,000 people. I know Michigan's not having the season they thought they would have, but those are still passionate fans. I'm sure they'll show up. Welcome Oregon to the Big Ten. Welcome them to the big house. In that conference. I know their offensive line has been playing better and it's trending up, But in now Ohio State game, like JT Tuimoloau for Ohio State, he had some success. Defensive line for Ohio State had some success. Well, Michigan has a better defensive line. They may have the best defensive line in the in the country, really. So just so much uncertainty there. Again, I don't know how they're going to respond playing on the road. Their offensive line is really going to be challenged this week against a premier defensive line. Oregon gets by on having really good skill position players, right? Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart when he wants to show up and play, Trayshawn Holden, obviously. I mean, Michigan's corners aren't bad, and Will Johnson is the best. If they can take advantage of the quarterback too on Michigan, so be it. But getting 15.5 points here, guys, I'll take it. It's kind of one of those plug your nose and just bet it and just hope for the best. But from a numbers perspective, I have to back Michigan here. Again, first real test for Michigan on the road. And yeah, I mean, no one's going to want to do this one. Again, if you want to, bet against this, go against the public, this is probably your best shot because I can guarantee everyone's going to be on Oregon in this one.
85% is on Oregon as of right now.
Yeah, I want to say it's going to go higher than that too. I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of
Michigan backers, yeah.
If this line gets to like 17-ish, I might have to bet it again. But yeah, as of right now, I'm on Michigan 15.5. Not the biggest wager, but if it gets to 17, I'll probably back it again. And again, it's more of a play against Oregon, just on the fact they're going on the road for the first time in forever. So yeah.
Normally this would be a big matchup, and maybe it ends up being a big matchup considering how they played the past few weeks. But Florida goes to Georgia. Line opened up at 20.5 in Georgia's favor, and as of yesterday, it was sitting at 16 even. 52.5 is the total, and the money line for Florida sitting at plus 615. Any real threat for Georgia in this game, John?
I don't think so. No, this is a big game. It always is. Hostile environment, but Georgia got the bye week. And to get time to prepare, kind of settle down from that win against Texas. I think it's kind of the thing for me is I think it's kind of starting to click in the run game for Georgia, which is what really is going to open it up for Beck and the lack of receivers we have. The receiver room still is somewhat worrying for me. But overall, the defense played like an NFL defense last week. The Georgia defense that you'd expect to come out there. TJ Lagway, right? He's still young and learning, and I do think he'll make some mistakes and have a couple turnovers here. So yeah, I like Georgia here. I don't see any concern of them not winning this game. What is the line, Tyler?
It is sitting at 16.
16?
Yeah.
And that's a neutral site game, by the way, for people that don't know. It's in Jacksonville. Yeah, I don't know. I think that line's right. I would personally put it at about 14, 2 touchdowns. So I guess give me Florida the plus the 16, but Georgia won't lose that game.
Jose, you got to play?
I do not. I just want to point out though that Georgia is trending in the right direction as the season's starting to wind down a little bit. But I don't want. I still don't think they've hit their peak, right? Like they've looked better and they're playing against better opponents. Obviously, that Texas win was huge. But I feel like they haven't actually, played at 100%. So that's pretty scary. If this team turns it on at the right time, they're able to hit their ceiling. I still think they're the best team in the country. So yeah, and we just struck them out. Let's go.
Texas Tech goes to Iowa State this weekend. Opened up at 11 and it's gone up to 13. Total is at 56, and the money line is 4-1. So, John, I know you got a future on the Cyclones. Is there any threat for them this weekend?
Davis says Georgia minus 16.
16.
That's my boy. No, I don't think so. I to be 100% honest with you guys, I haven't kept up with Texas Tech too much this year. They seem like an up and down team. One week they play really good. One week they just do not play up to their expectations. So this game being at Iowa State, right, Tyler? I would lean Iowa State here to get it done. Personally, I don't know if they'll cover the spread, but I do like Iowa State there.
Yeah, 90% of the bets are on Texas Tech this weekend in this game.
Yeah,
90% of them. It seems like I'm also not.
I think the line's right, personally.
I do too. I think it's spot on. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have just watched every Texas Tech game that they played this year because I haven't. But it feels like with their
I wish I
offense
did.
is very up and down. Same, honestly,
I
because
wish
they
I
seem
did.
to be in some dogfights.
Crazy, you know?
Yeah. But it seems like they're kind of up and down, like you said. They were up 17 last week on TCU and ended up losing the game 35-34. Played Arizona in a good game. So it feels like their offense is just kind of really up and down. They can sometimes score a lot of points. Sometimes they look like shit. So you never know which Texas Tech team you're going to get. But as of right now, I think the past couple of weeks they've looked pretty good. So if you're getting the 13, I wouldn't mind, if I had to pick a play, taking the 13 there with them. But don't feel great about it as far as that goes. And there's a very good chance that they don't do anything. And with 90% of the money coming in on Texas Tech, I don't like that either. So, Jose, you play anything on this game?
I'm not. No, like I said, I wish I watched more Texas Tech.
I will this weekend.
But I'll tell you what, as the Big 12 is starting to wind down now and all these teams are still in it, I'm going to pay more attention to this conference for sure.
Yeah.
I've really only seen Colorado play a handful of times, only because I'm a fan of their team, I guess. But besides that, like I've seen a few Kansas games, K-State games, but nothing like, nothing crazy. But like I said, as the season's starting to wind down, this is a conference you want to keep your eye on because there's so much uncertainty. So I'm going to try and watch this game. In fact, I'm sure I probably end up watching this game. But yeah, nothing for me, pregame, I guess.
Yeah. Our Aggies, we've been hot on them. Undefeated in the SEC. They go to South Carolina this weekend. Look, this game is a real threat for A&M. Line to open up at 4 is now at 2.5. Money line for South Carolina sitting at 110. So, Jose, I think you have a play on this game. And what direction are you going with this game?
Yeah, look, me and you led the Aggie bandwagon this offseason, right, Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
We were saying how much we loved A&M this season. The roster's really good, and it's pretty much all come to fruition. But I think now's the time you kind of want to jump off. I'm not saying I'm jumping off completely. I still think they have a legit team and can make the CFP. But this is a perfect spot, in my opinion, to sell on Texas A&M. They just had an amazing comeback win against LSU, right? They go to the backup quarterback. They're playing at home, top 10 game, national championship implications, right? Very emotional game. Now you got to go on the road, and you got to play against Beamer Ball, right? That South Carolina crowd is always, jumping, regardless of what the score, regardless of what the record is. That crowd always shows up. And how I talked about earlier, I think in certain games, you want to have like Weigman start. And I think this is a game that's actually better for Weigman if you were to get in there and play. Reason is because South Carolina secondary is vulnerable. It's their defensive line that causes a lot of problems. Right now, they can cause a lot of problems in the pass game too, but still, Weigman is the more accurate passer. We can get the quick game going. I think that bodes well for A&M's offense. Marcel Reed really can't throw all that much, guys. I've seen him play a couple times now. He is a strict runner. Now that fits Colin Klein's offense to a T in terms of running the ball, but you still got to be able to throw the ball, somewhat consistently. South Carolina's strength is defensive line, right? They're elite against the pass. They're also pretty damn good against the run. So if A&M's going to go in there and expect to run all over South Carolina, it's not going to happen, right? South Carolina's going to be prepared for that. You want to attack the secondary. You want to attack the cornerbacks. And again, I just don't think with Marcel Reed as the quarterback, A&M's going to be equipped to do that. To be honest with you, I don't even think this line should be South Carolina getting any points. I think South Carolina should be favored in this game. The only reason they're not favored is because A&M's ranked. That's it. I can't imagine you're going to get a lot of love from South Carolina on the betting spread perspective. I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you, Tyler, but I would imagine A&M's getting a majority of the bets.
Yeah, A&M has 85% of the bets as of right now.
Also want to point out this line opened up at 3.5 and it's now down to 2.5, right? Or is it 3, Tyler?
It opened up at 4 and is now down to 2.5.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very classic case of pros versus Joes. All the professionals will be betting South Carolina. All of your average bettors will be betting on Texas A&M. Again, I just think they match up well. Now, I'm concerned with South Carolina's offense. I'm not going to lie to you. Their offense has been pretty damn bad this year. But for what it's worth, keep in mind, Lenore Sellers was hurt for the majority of this season. Starting to get healthy, coming off a bye week. Forgot to mention that as well. Getting some extra rest. That's going to be big for them. So, yeah, I just think all signs point to South Carolina here to knock off Texas A&M. This stuff is never easy, right? Like every season before the CFP rankings get revealed, we always point out like 6 or 7 teams and say, oh, yeah, these teams will make the CFP. They always end up losing games that we don't expect them to lose. think this is a prime scenario right here. Everyone's looking forward to that A&M Texas game at the end of the season. Everyone's writing those two teams in as potential CFP locks, right? It's not that easy, guys. One of these teams will slip up. I think A&M slips up here. Perfect spot if you want to back the Gamecocks. So yeah, I'll take the 2.5. I'll take the money line as well. I really like South Carolina this week, guys. I think they should be favored.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like South Carolina as well. John, you play anything?
No play. I think what helps A&M here is that South Carolina doesn't know what quarterback they are going to trot out there, right? Or if they are going to split reps, if Reed and Weigman split reps. So I think that does help A&M a little bit. I do think South Carolina's defense is super underrated, especially the front seven. So if it is Reed, I think that South Carolina will be able to stop the run. And if it's Weigman, the DBs are going to have to step up and make plays. I have no play. This is a game I will watch and keep my eyes on, though, to see how A&M plays and who they trot out there at quarterback and what their future plans are here. If they're going to go two quarterbacks the rest of the year, you know what I mean, or what the play is. So as of right, I literally just looked up updates and it says Weigman and Reed are splitting first team reps. So.
Yeah. South Carolina's got some dogs up front.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
some
sure.
dogs on that D line.
Oh yeah,
they're very good. Very, 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 very underrated. I mean, look at the Bama game. They were disrupting Bama all game long. They were lethal back there.
Hey, they could have beat Bama, and
They
could have
could've.
beat LSU.
They honestly should have beat Bama, and they absolutely
LSU as well.
should have beat LSU.
yeah.
Like this South Carolina
They
team is
should.
better than what their record indicates.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
The LSU game, I would say they absolutely should have. Now the Bama game, it is like that they lost, but they were in that game the entire time, and they had a very good chance to win that game. LSU, they absolutely should have beat. That penalty at the end of the game was some bullshit. The black crackback or blindside, whatever they call.
Yeah.
I
I personally believe if you want to bet South Carolina, you should do it now.
Yeah.
Because I think this line's going to keep going down. I know 85% of the bets are on A&M. This is just a massive pros versus Joe's game, guys. This line's going to keep going down. Everyone's going to wonder why. So if you want to get on South Carolina, you should probably do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Louisville goes to Clemson. Line opened at 8.5, is now at 10.5. Is Clemson in any real threat at all?
No. Defense is too good.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yep.
Pitt goes to SMU this weekend. Line opened up at 6.5. Pitt plus 6.5, and it's gone up to 7.5. Is there any real threat for SMU in this game?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yes too. I think I've actually watched a few Pitt games, about 3 Pitt games this year, and specifically on the offensive side of the ball, they move it really well. They're very efficient. They're very fast, very methodical, and they can put up points in a hurry. If this turns into a shootout, I do think Pitt could pull this out. Yes.
Yeah, the only time I've ever bet on a Pitt game was Syracuse, where Kyle McCord decided to throw 5 interceptions and 3 pick sixes. So that kind of sucked.
Benefits from some insane turnover luck, guys. I mean, 5 picks against Syracuse.
5. 3 in the first quarter, dude.
Both these teams really, because SMU last week, was gift wrapped the win by Duke. I want to say they turned the ball over 6 times last week.
Yeah.
Kevin Jennings did. Just a ridiculous showing. Both these teams I think aren't very good. I mean, yeah, Pitt's undefeated. Sure, they should have lost against West Virginia. I still remember that. I'm just not sold in one of these teams. So if you're gonna give me 7.5 points with Pitt, I'll probably end up taking it.
Pitt should have lost to West Virginia.
Yeah, 1,000%.
For SMU, it's a team that we all came into the season high on. We all thought they were going to be a fun team to watch, right? We all thought it was going to be really, really cool. They're 7-1, but they are not good. They're not fun to watch.
Yeah.
Their quarterback sucks. Both of them suck. It's funny because everything went wrong in regards to our prediction, but yet they still keep winning games. I don't know how they're doing it, but yeah.
A jinx flank Preston Stone's career.
Yeah, the poor guy, I thought he was going to have potential to be ACC Player of the Year. And once John came out and endorsed him, I mean, that's it.
He's the shredder from last year.
Last week, last week I put Drew Aller season and the kid gets hurt at halftime.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the shredder from last year, dude.
Gonzaga's going to be last in the West Coast Conference this year now.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
All right, let's get to the big game of the week. We'll recap our bet. Actually, no, sorry. We got one more to do, and then we'll do that. USC goes to Washington. Washington was open at +3, is now at 2.5. Over-unders at 55.5. Washington money lines at +120. Jose, I know this is your boys. What do you expect out of USC this weekend? Are they coming out with a dub?
Yeah, I was curious to see how that Rutgers game was gonna go because I wanted to see if they quit or not. They haven't. They're still playing pretty damn hard. So kudos to Lincoln Riley for getting them to still buy in. I don't feel like it's a hard handicap, guys. We talked about it last week with Washington. When Washington plays against teams that can throw the ball, they're not gonna win, right? Like their defense. I know their defense is ranked in the top 5. I want to say in regards to a passing success rate, but that's mainly because they've played teams that can't throw the ball for shit, right? They played against Rutgers, they played against Michigan, they've played against Indiana when they had Taven Jackson, right? It wasn't even Curtis Rourke. There was someone else they played against as well, Iowa. And by the way, Cade McNamara got benched officially, finally.
Thank God. I mean, what are we waiting
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, he finally got benched. This season is over. His career.
There's a
is
chance my future can still hit, but they got to win out. So,
They got a better chance now.
but they got a better chance. So we'll see.
I would
But
say
yeah,
that ticket's live.
yeah.
But yeah, Washington's record, our Washington's statistics against the pass is heavily inflated by the fact they haven't played anybody good that's throwing the ball. USC can't throw the ball well. They have elite receivers. These would be the best receivers Washington has faced all season. So yeah, and USC can run the ball as well. I just want to point that out. All those games that Washington played where the team can't throw the ball, they lost. Right, Rutgers. They lost against Iowa. Lost last week against Indiana. Now they're playing against a team that can throw, can run. I don't see why this line's 2.5, 3. I know Washington's getting a lot of love in the market from some well-respected bettors. I just don't see it. I already backed USC -2.5. I like it a lot. Again, Washington's statistics on defense are heavily inflated by the fact they played against teams who are dog shit on offense. So I like to see how they do against a really good offense this week. The Trojans.
John, you got anything?
I don't have a play here. I lean the over more than anything. I think it will be a shootout. I would lean the over. I would say like 34-31 personally. Or it's sitting at 55, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think it's pretty close, but I do lean the over.
All right, heavyweight matchup of the weekend. Ohio State travels to Penn State. Line opened up at 3.5, and it is still there at 3.5. The total for this game is at 45 even. The money line for Penn State sitting at +145. As of right now, 70% of the bets are coming in on Ohio State for this weekend. Home dogs, we've talked about it, have been a trend, but no Drew Aller, and you get the hook at home. Kind of scares me. But I'm going to be riding with Penn State +3.5. Jose, I think you're going to be riding with Penn State +3.5. We rode with Penn State last year. They absolutely burned us. They absolutely should have won, but we're going back for thirds. We didn't learn our lesson. We're going back for some more. So what do you expect to happen in this game this weekend?
I believe this will be a battle of the defenses. Which defense wants it more? Like if you're Penn State, right, you know how to attack Ohio State in this game because they have no offensive tackles. You have one of the best defensive lines in the country. You have players like Abdul Carter who can single-handedly wreck a game. If Penn State wants to win, their defense needs to pull this game out for them. Can they? I think they can. This defense is really, really good, right? Ohio State can't run the ball. You don't have to worry about that. Now, they have players like Jeremiah Smith, who's a stud, the best freshman wide receiver in the country, bar none. He's the best one. Sorry, I'm watching this Dodgers game as I'm doing this. But yeah, like I said, Penn State's defense can win this one on their own. Now, Ohio State on the flip side can also win this one on their own. Ohio State's defense struggled in that Oregon game because they couldn't cover the Oregon receivers, right? Denzel Burke, potential first-round pick, top 10 pick in the draft. Not anymore, at least not in my opinion. But he was talented. He got burned, eaten alive in that game by Tez Johnson, by Trayshawn Holden before he got ejected, and by Evan Stewart especially, right? Well, Penn State doesn't have guys like that, right? Penn State doesn't have guys that can go out there and beat them one-on-one. So, again, is Ohio State's defense going to show up and produce? That's the question. I'm taking Penn State because of the home dogs and getting 3.5 points in a game in which I think both these teams are pretty well well matched given the circumstances. Penn State has a player, I'm sure you guys know of him, Tyler Warren. He plays everything for them: tight end, receiver, running back, fullback. I think he's played center
He's
this
played
season as
quarterback
well.
some.
Yeah, he's played quarterback.
He's a
He plays everything
former
for
high
them.
school quarterback.
Is he? Yeah, that would make sense. So he's the key player for Penn State's offense. I'm not sold on the rest of their players. I know their ground game is pretty good. But again, I'm just not sold on Penn State without Drew Aller, I guess, to the extent to back them maybe on the money line. For what it's worth, Bo Pribula came in. John, you were pretty high on him. He looked pretty damn well. He brings a different element to this offense, utilizes his legs a little bit more, so maybe that throws Ohio State off a little bit. I don't think Aller's been officially ruled out yet, and historically with James Franklin, he pretty much always keeps these things close to vest. He won't announce who's going to start until maybe like 5 minutes before game time. But I would assume it's Pribula right now. I'm sure Aller will give it everything to try and go. But Andy Kotelnicki, our guy, right? If he can whip up a game plan, which I think he can, take advantage of this Ohio State secondary, maybe utilize Warren as a receiver a little bit more in this game, could be big. Again, I think these teams are pretty well matched. Which defense wants it more? I'm going to side with Penn State as the home dog, getting 3.5. But this should be a good one. This should be a really, really good one. Can James Franklin finally get over the hump? We'll see. I hope so. I think for the purposes of our futures or in futures in general, Ohio State needs this one a lot more than Penn State. I think if Penn State loses this game, guys, but they win out, they're going to make the CFP regardless. So I don't think it matters to them all that much.
Yeah.
Ohio State, they lose this game, it's not looking good for their season. And Ryan Day is going to be under a lot of scrutiny. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, Ohio State needs this game a lot more than Penn State. But yeah, I'm going to back the Nittany Lions here. Getting 3.5 at home, I think it's a little bit too much. I don't feel strongly about it, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. But I think their defense, specifically their defensive line for Penn State, should have their way with this Ohio State offensive line.
John, what are you playing?
I'll be on Penn State money line. I like Penn State here. James Franklin historically has been bad against Ohio State. I think he's like 1-6 against the spread. It's gonna be popping in there. It's gonna be a whiteout. That it's gonna be lit. Drew Aller practiced with no limitations today. I think Drew Aller plays. But regardless of who plays, if it's Bo Pribula or Drew Aller, either one, I think they're going to be just fine. Bo played extremely well. He does bring a different element with his legs. He's got more speed. But the thing is he's methodical and accurate with the ball. I watched the whole second half of the game last week. He brings a different element. And Jose already mentioned that the tight end, he's a difference maker for this team. They lined him up at quarterback. They lined him up at running back, tight end, wide receiver, you name it. He plays all over the field, and he makes a ton of plays for this team. Nick Singleton will be the difference makers in this game, regardless of who's at quarterback. Defense, I think their defense is one of the best ones in the country. They're going to give the offensive line problems. If they can kind of do what happened last week to Ohio State when they played Illinois, I believe. Or who did they play last week? Ohio State. Who did Ohio State play last week? Nebraska. Yeah. I think that if they kind of can do the same thing and limit the run game like Nebraska did last week. And I think that they'll even be able to get to Howard and get some sacks. So, yeah, give me Penn State money line, regardless of who's the quarterback. But Drew Aller, like I said, practice, no limitations, looked really good. I watched some of the film. I do think he starts, but regardless, Bo or Aller, either one, I think they can get it done. The key there is Kotelnicki, the run game in Singleton, and then the tight end. So,
yeah, I think Kotelnicki will be the difference from what Penn State has been missing in this game.
Yeah. Penn State wins and punches their ticket, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Let's go over some bets real quick. Go over the dog parlay, and we'll wrap it up. John, what are you taking this weekend?
Yeah, not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of games that really stick out to me this weekend. But I will take Army minus 22. I know it's a big line, but Army's defense has just been incredible. Air Force has really struggled. And these Service Academy games, you kind of know what to expect. They play each other every year, right? I think Army's defense is just far more talented than Air Force can bring on offense. They might shut them out here. So I do like Army to pretty much dominate this game. I know it's a big line, but give me Army. And then I'll be on Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. Andrew, that one's for you, baby. Golden Gophers -3. I think they handle business. They win closer. I have that closer to 6 or 7. So I think there's a lot of value there to take Minnesota this week.
As of right now, the only thing I'm on is Penn State +3.5 and Arkansas +7 at home against Ole Miss is the only 2 bets I've taken. I'll probably be taking some more as we get closer to the weekend, so I should follow us on Action Network. Jose, what are you taking?
USC -2.5, Minnesota -3, Penn State getting 3.5. My favorite bet this weekend, South Carolina getting 2.5. South Carolina money line. I think that's going to be an upset brewing for A&M. I believe I had one more. I forget. I don't know if you have it written down there.
Michigan.
Michigan getting 15.5. I would wait, maybe get 17-ish, and then I'll bet it again. Again, just going against Oregon here. I know they haven't played on the road in a while. So, yeah, I'll take Michigan's defense, trying to keep this one relatively close. With that being said, guys, I know we're towards the end of the video, but the Dodgers are 1 out away from winning the World Series. So I'm going to hop off now. Forgive me.
You're good.
Celebrate.
Congratulations.
All right, boy.
Thank you, baby. Let's go. Go Dodgers.
All right.
Really quick, guys. Next week is Tuesday is election day. We are recording Wednesday live next week.
And make sure you guys exercise your right to vote. Get out there and vote. Also, want to point out next Tuesday will be college basketball season. All right, bye.
Yep.
And the NFL trade deadline is also next Tuesday.
It's gonna be a lit weekend. So, only thing I got to say is follow me on Action. I know Jose is going to be in there with me doing a lot of college basketball bets, but I do the majority of our college basketball bets. I've been breaking down teams since summertime, and lines are starting to drop. I already took Gonzaga opening night against Baylor, so just keep an eye out for that. College basketball's here. I'm more than excited. I'm going to probably watch 100 games on opening night, but it's all good.
All right, for the dog parlay of the week, real quick. South Carolina money line against A&M, Penn State against Ohio State, Arkansas beating Ole Miss comes out to 15-1 odds. So, if you want to put a little sprinkle on that, you can play that for the dog parlay of the week. Once again, everybody, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We hope y'all like the live shows. We enjoy doing it. We greatly appreciate it. And once again, go follow us on all our socials: Twitter, Action Network. Dodgers just won the World Series. And
Wednesday next week.
Yeah, Wednesday next week.
Keep an eye out for college basketball bets this weekend.
Yeah, Wednesday next week. We'll be live again on YouTube, coming back with another show. So come back and join us next week. We appreciate everybody that participated in the chat tonight. Hope you are going to be back with us next week. We appreciate you guys big time, and we'll be back next week. Appreciate it.
Peace.